Alright, opening it up, and hello everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Oracles of Theleston. We are back with our character from last week that we're going to be working on here, Harold Baker. And we've got the whole team here again. How's it going, folks?
I
Pretty
can't
good.
complain.
Well, I can complain, but we won't talk about that.
Well, yeah.
Well, nobody,
No one
nobody
listens
wants to hear
me
it
if I
anyway.
complain. Yeah, exactly.
All right. So I'm just gonna kind of jump back in here, bring up the monitor capture. But actually, first, I want to make a point of correction. It is not a Thelestoner. That is not correct. It is a Thelestonan. So we have corrected it in the title there.
I don't know. That might depend on who our DM is.
Um, yeah, Rose will throttle them with something vicious if they use that as the phrase. So
I got
I'd I would keep it square on that one and
No,
just
our,
go with
our
the one that is officially canon, not the one that's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
right up until we make a particular type of herbologist character.
Mm-hmm.
I digress.
All right. So I'm going to bring up the monitor capture here, which kind of has what we've got going on from before. Now, one thing that we're going to correct before we really continue is I kind of misinterpreted the way the skills is supposed to work, and Pull actually had it right, but I was like, no, I got it, and so we got
Score
it
one for
wrong.
the newbie.
Yep.
Haha.
I don't know
Just for fun.
the way it read to me was not in a cumulative way. If you want it to be cumulative, well, just give the cumulative totals, because it's not like you're going to start from 3 and then add plus 1 point into there. You fill your points from 1 to 3, and then age would give you the extra pluses. So it's just a little silly to me that it isn't, you know, filled. Actually, no, I was talking about attributes, not skills. So that was a false equivalency there anyway. Um, whoops. But yeah. So we've got
So what's the total we're supposed
So
to have?
what's the total we're supposed to have up here is 108, and we have 165.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So, but let's start by bumping cooking down to 4
Yeah.
and dodge. We could probably dodge it 2.
Yeah, that would make sense. So we'll bring this to 4. That will bring this then to 14 for the cost. So that gives us, that frees up a lot right there. Wait, is that right? No, it would be 30. 30. So that still frees up 25 points. So that brings us down to 140. Oops. And then the other thing here that we want to do is, you said bring this down. Will be 14 instead of the 30. So we're gaining 16 there. So all right, that gets us closer. I wouldn't really bother lowering any of the 2s to 1. But we're going to need to lower at least one of these 3s. 1 or 2 of these 3s, I think.
I would reduce gossip by at least 1.
Okie dokie. So we'll take that down.
Well, I think we're probably going to end up using gossiping more than we use butchering.
That could be the case, but you know, he
Well, if he's
uses.
supposed to be a master cook.
Yeah, he uses butchering
so-
more in his cooking.
Sure, I suppose will be. Although,
You could
again,
use
shopkeeping.
negotiation, but you could use negotiation for that. He doesn't have to do his own butchering.
Freeze up 9 points. 115. Um, yeah, he does. He can use negotiation for his a lot of his stuff. Gossip is a helpful thing, but
No, I'm saying he can use he can use his negotiation to help with the butchering. He doesn't have to do his own butchering, so you could lower that to 2. I mean, he's still fine.
that's true. But I remember last week we were talking about the idea that the volume of meat pies that he's making, it's a lot cheaper for him to just get the meat whole and then break it down himself than getting it pre-cut or already prepared. So it would make sense for him to be doing his own butchering. The
Well, and I
negotiation,
really figured gossip might be a byproduct of negotiation.
yeah,
Since
a little bit, and probably
I,
keeping
yeah,
up on
I
his
mean-
competitors and such.
But the character's not going to be using butchering. That's my point.
I think
Ah,
if I think we came
I
up
think he would.
based on the skills that the amount of skill points we had available, we agreed that he very well would know basic butchering because he buys parts in whole, a hunk of meat instead of the pre-cuts because that's cheaper, and that makes sense for him
Yeah.
to have butchering. But he probably doesn't need to have an excessively high one. So
yeah,
still
that's
cut it
true.
down
I'll
to
I'll
nothing.
give you that. So let's bring that down to 5.
And if he doesn't cut it, perfect cuts of meats, that's fine. He'll throw the rest into, a mincemeat pie or something.
106. So that gets us to 106. That'd leave us with 2 CP. Um,
Well, we could leave those for the next round, right, or the next tier.
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah. All right. So let me fill in the
Snipe
rest.
says
of the-
somebody should maybe think about an app for that.
Like maybe the updated app they have for all this biz.
Yeah, but it doesn't export yet. That's the main thing I've
Yeah.
been waiting on.
You're,
Is
you're screen sharing it anyways, but at
Yeah.
this point, let's not rock the boat. But
Yep.
yeah. No, I mean that's the one thing, and I know Snipe's like, yeah, I know, I want to put in the export stuff too, because I know what it's like to design stuff and be like, oh man, but there's this other feature I want to do, and this other feature, and then it'll finally be like the minimum viable product, and then we can go time with it. So yeah, no, I feel you there. We'll get there when
Okay,
we
so
get
Neuro,
there.
I would change butchering to 2, dodge to 2.
Yeah, I gotta rewrite these values here.
And I think
Dodge.
we're caught up.
Dodge is 3 now, actually.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
It seems weird that dodge would be 3 when other skills are 2.
Well, in a kitchen where you got a lot of hot things and stuff moving around, a lot. I'm sure he doesn't just work in his own place, but he's worked in other kitchens as well for a while. That's
yeah,
where he
it's oddly, and maybe this is too much story liberty, but yeah, I totally see a chef who's grown up or a cook who's grown up, especially apprenticing in busy kitchens, would actually be pretty light on his feet.
And I would say
Um,
if it's a grimy kitchen where people aren't really taught good technique and stuff, then you don't know to tell people when you're there, when you're behind them, when you've got something hot behind them, when you got something sharp, coming around. So, if people don't give that common courtesy in the kitchen, you do have to keep your head on a swivel and be ready to move at a moment's notice. Someone's throwing something, with a lot of water on it and hot oil, you got to be ready to dodge out of that explosion. So yeah, dodging makes sense, and maybe it's just something that when he walks through the streets, he doesn't like touching people or something, so he just kind of weaves around them as best he can. Who knows?
He did his own deliveries for a while there, or had to do deliveries for a while there. Learned to weave his way through the. I don't think it's unreasonable, and maybe it is unreasonable in a larger scale. But for the purposes of this character, I think it's fine.
It exports to XML now. Oh, that's an improvement. I mean, that's
It's an
a start
improvement.
for
XML is
sure.
good.
Because then people can take that XML and format it into their own style of character sheet, however they want. Looking to web experts out there.
Well, I'll come back with 5,000 lines of PHP that should, that anything else could do it in 2 lines. But
Well, a little of this, a little of that, however you want to do it, I guess.
all right.
All right, so this looks pretty reasonable for chef baker with some experience here. All right, Now, I just wanted to show people real quick. There's been a little bit more of an update. If you haven't checked on the skill list spreadsheet, those who know where it's at and have access, which I think we've even linked it in chat before, we've got a lot more information. We actually have the full descriptions of things now. Not everything has been fully filled in. There is a lot of stuff here, but it's coming along, and they haven't filled it in, but we can see the inklings of the gear list here and the spell list. So that's going to be some cool stuff, and as those things get filled in, I'm sure we'll talk about them in a lot more detail. Also, since the last episode, totemic magic was pretty much explained in full in thoroughly, most specifically last fireside. So if that's something that you've been interested in, is the kind of difference between the imbued magic versus totemic magic, then that's the episode that'll give you the most information that's ever been revealed in one consolidated place. And I believe
that
it's
was a really
because
good data dump there on
yeah,
that one.
and I think it's because Verde is actually working on a story that takes place in Fall Creek that's going to involve totems and totemic magic and rituals. So not only did we get to learn about it, we'll get to see a practical example of it in story format. So that'll be pretty exciting.
Cool.
If it isn't up yet, I think that one's coming up soon. Cool. Thanks for the link there, Rose. All right. So we were kind of talking about the scenario for the sort of situation here that Harold's got to investigate, and we kind of thought about some things about it that trying to figure out seasonally how things would work. How Crown's Rock would be doing in terms of would they plan for a bad month and have enough supplies to last it out, or
Bad month?
a bad month or a bad week, or how many days of zero productivity and no incoming resources would they be able to sustain before?
Well, just go through and list off your talking points for that, and then we can go in and
Absolutely.
do the
So
because we were moving from winter to spring.
yeah, so that was where we were kind of at with the story that we had pitched for Harold last time. Why he was appointed a deputy for this investigation. So this is getting towards the end of winter. It's going to be coming into spring soon, but obviously the day it turns spring, it's not like a video game where like, oh yeah, you can just plant something, you'll have carrots
Well,
that
just-
day. It's
Just
you
list
know,
off your stuff, and then we'll go back and talk. So
Yeah.
winter to spring.
winter to spring.
Docks are shut down.
The docks have been shut down. There's been some contamination at both of the docks. They've been kind of quarantined. It's
For
not.
how long?
Well, let's just
Yeah.
list off points, and then we'll discuss where we think.
Okay.
those-
Yeah, and so between where we're at with the time, the docks, there was a report that there were figures seen on the docks, but that's coming from some kids, so we don't know if there's been some meddling. And
Well, people are disappearing. You said.
yeah, there was some amount of people
At
disappearing at night.
At the dock specifically, or
Well, they kind of come and go from the docks, and we're not really sure, what's going on with that necessarily. If they're, hidden on the ships doing some business, if there's even any validity, or if it's kids just seeing shadows in the mist.
right? But it's just I'm just going through the points that you had.
Yeah.
listed. So
Yeah.
It's the docks that the reports are missing from
Mhm.
at night. People are missing from the docks at night, or disappear from the docks.
Yeah.
And then what was after that?
You'll have to click over because if I do, it's gonna ruin the cameras here.
So, for brevity's sake, contamination or something at the dock, people sick and maybe disappearing. Docks have been quarantined. They're about to transition from old winter to spring, so local resources are growing scarce. Reports of figures seen out on the docks disappear into the night after doing what they do. Docks aren't being lit due to quarantine. And if this, I know this is one of the earlier lists we had, so it might be a little behind. Character's been appointed to investigate the contamination. Those were the general points. So that was our
Okay.
kind of starting
Right.
bullet points.
Okay.
Okay.
And so the first one that I flagged was winter to spring, because that's Thelestonian winters are how many months?
Aren't the
Old-
seasons all
win-
9
old
months?
winter is
There's
yeah,
some serious voodoo bullshit going on with their seasons.
yeah. So where are we? How long has winter been
What is it essentially?
so far?
Um,
Are we at
9 months.
8 months?
Yeah, I would imagine we're at about 8.5 months here. It's getting
right,
really
transitioning
towards
into the
the
first
end
of
here.
spring.
So if we're talking, I think the dock should not be shut down. I think it's easier and actually kind of more dramatic in certain ways to have political unrest because they're talking about.
Yeah, and actually, I do
Shutting
agree
down.
with that. I think even though yes, they probably have some kind of stores, it's still at ports. We haven't seen a lot of examples that they have a huge amount of storage space just for the what if scenario,
Okay.
and I think it does. It adds more tension to it if they don't.
Let's
The docks are being at risk of being closed. Supplies are already slow coming in because it's treacherous to traverse
let's
the sound of winter.
let's say this: there's been, because of the risk of or the concerns of contamination and potential quarantine, all municipal ships have been put on hold. But all of the docks that are privately owned by DNI or any other companies in the area, they're still allowed to operate. But that's part of the political unrest, is that, well, now that people are like, geez, now we got to pay hand over fist in order to get this done. This is being done to us, and I could see that being kind of where the unrest would be really coming from.
I think, given the political nature that was supposed to take place with revival, it's more interesting to have us go through how that political unrest, go through the political actions, because that was supposed to be the players involved with the politics of that, not just a DM deciding that. So where do the players stand? If we have a handful of players, are all the players in agreement that and what are their place in the politics of Crown's Rock? I mean, that's the cool thing to explore, not just have the DM decide that it's been shut down, but go through the process of whether or not it should be shut down. That's what I'm thinking.
So then I would imagine around the beginning of the 8th month, we would start learning about some sort of issue, whether it's contamination or otherwise, that would potentially require the closure of the docks, or a perceived threat that was actually manufactured socially or physically or otherwise to try to get the docks shut down for a period of time. Winter is hard even when prepared. Yeah, that definitely makes sense, Snipe.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Snipe and Verde, Oba, how you guys doing? Everyone in chat, how you doing? Should have said hello earlier, and see, we got a new visitor there. How you doing? Yeah, so I mean, it would make sense. The winter would be kind of in a little bit of they'd be dwindling on the resources, and I'm not really sure like which version of the winter it would be, or what part or whatever. Obviously, it's towards the end of it, but I know there's kind of some weird stuff and some variation that even goes in with that. But I would imagine this one is it probably just like a normal sort of winter up to this point. This is the only like maybe major event that was of interest. Maybe not. Maybe there were other things even leading up to this point. Why there was suspicion of things going on in the docks. Maybe a few months into the winter, some cult of Hydra was found. They were found and cleared out, but not before they completed some ritual of unknown
We're telling too much backstory. We don't
Yeah,
need to know that for
it's
the character.
it's yeah.
The
Well,
character
we
needs to be able to figure that out. So let's just go with we've got a few weeks where contamination is not so bad. So I think that we should be at a point where the contamination is, or the contagion, whatever it is, has been maybe a few weeks, and it's just starting to affect. So that people have to work things out. People aren't showing up at the docks because it's got to be. People have to be sick already just from winter. Winter's got to be a huge time for illness. So I think probably have a lot of sickness in general, and then figuring out that something's unusual enough that people are starting not to show up at the docks anyway. But it seems like it. I mean, whatever the contagion is can't have been so long that we've got throngs of people dying, right?
Throngs. How many are in a throng?
I don't know.
I mean, we start talking about throngs, and we have a crisis. Is
That's
it
Yeah.
a crisis yet,
that's
or are
what I'm
we
saying.
coming up on a crisis?
If it's a quarantine, that's a crisis.
Okay.
Quarantining the docks, that's a crisis. So that's what I'm saying. It seems like we should not be dropped into crisis mode, but into the beginnings of, okay, what are we going to do, and how
which is again good, because then your character or really group of characters in an actual campaign are driven to try to prevent that. The timer's on them.
Right.
Sort of Damocles is over them.
Right, and but you also have some game time.
Yeah.
A week can be a big deal. In winter time, old winter, when supplies are scarce. So but that's also potentially a lot of game time for the players.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. I mean, what did we decide? Are we creeping up on it, or are we in crisis?
I think we would probably want to start the campaign creeping up on it rather than in full crisis. That way, there's a little bit more context, and the reason why the character would be deputized kind of comes about through gameplay. I'm sure that itself is a fun and interesting story, and I would imagine it's one of those. You play an old NES RPGs. You keep saying no, and the character keeps saying the same thing till you say yes and agree to continue the storyline. I would imagine that's kind of what would happen. No matter what you do to try to get out of it, you're gonna get deputized one way or another. They try to do it, behind closed doors. You try to dodge it. At some point, they, just bring a whole bunch of people and have this big event at your bakery. Oh yeah, we're gonna sign you, blah blah blah, and you just you're stuck. You can't avoid it. So. That itself, I would imagine, would be a fun back and forth to see how the player and the GM play that part out.
Yeah.
Because you can't avoid it. That's the story's got to continue with that.
Disgusting.
Right.
Snipe says that in Crowns Rock, small farmland families freeze out in their cottages once or twice in winter.
Ooh.
Which is great for our Dunwich and Associates, because they get to go then reclaim and resell the property. Fantastic business. They wish they had more of them. I think that's good. And yeah, I mean, eventually it's forced on him. And maybe Harold, being the crafty baker that he is, decides that how great for business would it be, even though he'd lose business while being closed, if he reopens with tales of saving this entire city from their
Right. So is Harold a
suffering.
compassionate fellow? Is he about to make soup for everybody, despite
Harold
the
at the
scarcity of supplies?
Harold, at the very least, understands when his hands are forced.
Yeah, I mean, even if he doesn't like people, he knows it's good business to be a likable guy. So whether he makes soup for everybody because he wants to, or he knows, all right, when the winter's over, everyone's going to remember me, and I'm going to be making so many buns.
And do we have, I forgot to do this last night. I forgot why I was planning on revisiting the player's guide. But perks, personality perks and quirks, do we have stuff like that in the player's guide? Is that planned for the player's guide? Is that stretch goal? Where are we on helping to weave personality traits into our roles?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Okay.
Um, I mean, I would imagine a lot of the personality of things is strictly just done through narrative and stuff, and it's kind of the back and forth between the player and the GM for during the character creation process. But no, that's definitely a good point.
Yeah, I would normally associate that with kind of your more backstory development of what you think the character is like. But if you really started thinking about it, well, there's a reason why you learn certain things, certain skills, so those may dictate
Well, I
or
just
be
mean
dictated
like
by
it.
part of your personality.
I like having, because it's also helpful, especially for newbies like Paul, perhaps. Is this person frugal or not? What do they do with their money? Are they likely to spend their money, or are they likely to keep their money? All those stuff to help build a character that's not necessarily yourself.
I would imagine Harold here. He's a shrewd businessman. I would imagine he trades up his equipment
Right.
frequently.
But we're
Keeps
just
keeps seeing. I would imagine that he sees it as an investment, and he realizes if the baking thing goes head up or whatever, or belly up, and it's not working out, he can sell all of his high quality equipment and take on a different profession. He can go work in a kitchen somewhere
But,
again.
but is that what this was actually meaning, though?
Yeah.
I might have,
yeah. I mean, uh, uh, um,
Right. I think he invests in the business.
established role players can do that, but I don't think we have, especially since you don't have to actually role play that type of stuff in World of Warcraft. People don't know how to role play. Lots of people don't know how to role play like that. So to me, it's helpful to have perks and quirks, and put some investment into that to help people know how to play traits that they want, so they're not necessarily playing themselves.
yeah, no, that's a valid point. That could be good. But no, so Bertie, I know you're out there. Take note of that.
But if the system doesn't have it, that could be. You're right. He's saying they aren't planning for.
Yeah, there's terrors and dreads that can afflict you. Planned already, about a dozen of them, give or take. But we aren't planning on any perks/quirks trade-off system for the P&P system right now. So to that extent, I would imagine maybe Origin Matrix would have a higher chance of instilling those sorts of things into the character and having it matter that a quirk and an attribute associated with that quirk or something that I could see from Origin Matrix. But Quick Create, it seems like it's a little bit more difficult to force those things, and you really just have to kind of come up with them, like come up with the story and the tone and the style of your character as you're creating them.
And actually,
Yeah,
real
I
quick,
mean,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was
No,
just
go
going to say really quick for Handy McKay, who's new in the channel and kind of been asking questions about just what is it. So right now we're looking at what's called the character quick create. So there's a larger origin matrix which is designed to help you create a really in-depth character that's got an actual place in this world and a history. But there's also a desire to have a quick create system where you could literally just sit down with your friends, plop a character together in a few minutes, maybe a bit more than that, and then just get rolling through some pre-made scenarios. That's what we're kind of testing with right now, is the character quick create.
Yeah.
And the kind of first iteration of player guide.
Yeah, and I was thinking of perks and quirks because Paul had brought up tags, and again, those.
Well, the terrors and dreads thing sounds pretty interesting, but I kind of look at that as unbalanced or something against when you talk about perks and quirks, that perks tend to have a buffing or uplifted quality, things that improve, but terrors and dreads sounds like it's all bad.
Yeah.
things that make your character's life really difficult. So it's kind of like, I'd like to, I guess, just from a new perspective, I'd like to see a little bit more balance or options between things that potentially buff your character and things that potentially afflict your character.
Yeah.
Although this is this is if it's still a kind of Lovecraftian feel, then maybe the dread is more than the perk, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I was thinking madness, and how does madness affect us?
Right.
Does our health stuff affect us and things like that? So
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah,
when
and
I
maybe your perk is what you do for your profession.
yeah.
And that's it. Just like ordinary life, and then you have weird shit that happens. And that's all the quirks, the dread, the terrors, and all those
Yeah.
things. Wow.
I mean, the only time I can remember quirks being codified into the creation of a character for a game was in GURPS. You would get, and this is GURPS. You would start with 100 points to customize a heroic character with, versus like an NPC would be based on maybe 25 points or something. So you would get 1 to 5 points depending on if each quirk would be 1 point apiece, so you can have up to 5 quirks, and they'd just be simple things. Your character always finds farts funny. They put garlic all over everything they eat, stuff like that. Things that you'll have to role play, and they shouldn't have too much impact on the game, except when the things come up, you're not only is your character kind of prompted to respond, but the event may have happened because your character has this quirk. That's why the GM got it into that situation. So then you can open up the door for some antics in the expression of your character's personality in that situation. So in that case, quirks were something that 5 points, you're going to get like one very small perk, one advantage for that, something super super tiny, or a little bit of points towards a skill, maybe 1 or 2 levels of a skill, 3 if it's something that you can start in real easy. But it's something that's the only time I've ever really seen it codified in a pen and paper game for character
World
creation.
of Darkness had perks and quirks.
Okay, I haven't played that.
And I liked to the characters I like to make for Dungeons and Dragons 3.0 either had high intimidation, high bluff, intimidate, bluff, and there's one other charisma related that I would use. But those caused the character to, bluster and flirt more than fight, things like that. Yeah. Okay. So we're moving towards winter. We'd be at a point where the baker might be pressured or deciding that they should help out with investigating. I think more investigating the disappearances is the way we were building the character than the contamination, because there's not a lot of alchemy information. I don't know how the character would be able to investigate what's causing the illness, or even think about that. But we had talked about, Cole and I had talked a little bit about choosing a house for the shop.
Yeah.
A house with the shopkeep. And I had been thinking someplace that was a little bit in... It turns out that that's in between where the docks are.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, I forget which one that was.
You chose number 4, Sycessus Way.
Yeah, where is that?
Newtonside.
Newtonside, yeah.
If you think of the map, it's down about 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Let me bring up Photoshop. I have a map with everything here, I believe. Let me bring it up and see if I can home in on that location.
So I was thinking now more like Colwarren, because Colwarren is fairly close to the south docks.
Colwarren?
Yeah, Colwarren, or there's another one that was just a little north of there, but not so far away that, they'd have to travel halfway across the town just to get to the docks. And maybe his focus would be on the south docks specifically.
Colwarren is near the northern docks.
What's down below the... What are the ones that you chose that's towards the southern ones?
Oh, there you
I have to pull up my map. There's two. It's
I
right
have
by.
to scroll back through. There might be one in the
Down,
rusted
down,
quarter.
down. No, go down, 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 down. Oh, I'm talking to.
Here,
Caroline.
I've got the whole city
Yeah.
open here.
Cambrooks Toll. That's what I was thinking.
Cambridge Toll.
Cambrooks
Okay.
Toll or Crown's Willows.
Okay, so I
Crown's
will.
Willows does not have the kind of house we wanted.
I thought there was one.
I don't know.
Cambridge.
No? That wasn't in the list.
Uh, yeah, I'm pulling up the actual one with the from the revival site while we still have it. I'm pulling up the app where I can see the actual housing on it.
I
but
put the 5 in chat
Yeah.
at one point. Let me
Yeah.
scroll back.
All right.
So Cambrooks Toll is the closest, so that seems like a likely place that he would be familiar with and be willing to patrol and kind of know people there. And again, not have to go halfway across town just to while it's
There's one in
dangerous.
Nightgaunts.
So I'm
That one.
sorry. Crown's Willow does have houses in it. I just don't.
With
Right,
the
but not a
shopkeep.
shopkeep.
But it's not the shop house, right? Okay.
Oh,
Right.
you're right. I lied. It's number 2 Alderstrot.
Yeah.
Alderstrot. Oh, okay. That's
It's going to be really close to the center of town, so pretty far removed from the docks. Crown's Willows is also
Yeah,
quite
but not
safe.
so far away. Not so far away as the original one I chose.
Yeah, I mean Crown's Willows. It's a fair bit away from the market, so you know it's
Cull Warren might be a good option for the North Gate.
for the North Gate.
That's
I think-
number 5
yeah.
Fall Creek Street.
Well, Cambrooks Toll was also near farms, the Southgate Farms, and I don't know what's up by the North Gate.
Up by the North Gate. I mean, I'm thinking Ickrel Arch, if there's market or
There's not a shopkeeper house in Ickrel Arch.
okay.
Yeah. So I was
There's only
kind of thinking,
5.
yeah, I was thinking Cambrooks Toll is close to the south docks. It's also close to farming.
Yep, it's Southgate Farms.
And, yeah, and you know, again, you don't have to cross all the way across town to try and keep an eye on that area.
Okay. You said there was
It's
one
number 2. Oh wait.
in Culwarren?
Number 5 Grouse Walk Way in Nightgaunts.
Night.
That could be near the West Gate.
Yeah. Let's see.
There's not a dock over on the west gate, right?
No.
Yeah.
So we
there's
have
Northgate Farms too. We could do Colborne, I suppose.
Grouse Walk, and what number was it?
Number 8 Cambrick Lane is in Cambrick's Toll. That's a shopkeeper house.
Okay. So
That's closer to the southern gate.
yeah, so Cambrick's Lane. I'm guessing Cambrick's
Number 4
Toll.
and number 4 and number 8? No, is that right? It says number 4 is a merchant's home with a storefront and a room of purpose.
So Cambrick Toll is the hipster territory. Thanks, Snipe. Hipsters confirmed.
Yeah, and you can see it's a mixture of things. Along Cambrick Lane, you've got three of these 2-story houses on both sides, as well as these large. I'm guessing these like larger cottagey sort of things, like larger and kind of built up on each other. So, unfortunately, we don't have address numbers, so I'm not sure exactly which one. If you have the map open, the one on the website, do you know which one specifically it is?
Let's see. I did have it open at one point, but I might have closed it up in survival. I got Grouse Walk.
Yeah, I think Cambrick's Toll, Cull Warren are both decent choices for access to the docks that are there, but the North Gate is one that's known more for smugglers, where the South Gate is one for prosperous farming and trading. I think the Crown's Willows one is too upscale.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah. Cambrick's Toll would make sense for him.
Yeah. And I was thinking too, probably needs to be...
Southgate is the closest gate to the dock, Snipe mentions, which I wonder if proximity doesn't play into their decision to pull this guy.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And I was thinking needs to be fairly, not super well off, but enough so that they aren't, getting sick just because they're malnourished and stuff like that. Hardy enough to be able to survive a winter and survive the contagion, possibly.
Right.
Is the contagion isolated to the docks, or has it spread anywhere into the city?
At this point, I'm not sure if it would be early enough to tell yet, or if that would be part of the investigation.
Okay, because those gates all have like doors.
Yes.
Which would mean that the people, if the contagion is pretty much isolated to the docks, then people outside on the way between the gate and the docks, when they close those doors and they force the quarantine, those people are SOL in terms of getting anything from in the city.
That would be a good thing to discuss when we're for characters to debate.
And likewise, it would mean anybody in the city that needs resources that are still out on those farms would also have a hard time getting them. I would imagine investigators and people on special business are able to get a pass that allows them to get through the gates. But other than that, you would have to be like real serious official business with stamps and seals and everything to be able to get through. And I would imagine you'd probably get asked twice as many questions on the way back in.
So, and we're kind of coming up on the close of the hour, unfortunately. We've got more that we could talk about. But I just want to toss out there that we've been talking about this, and I had not been thinking about this at the beginning of the show, but it's sounding so good that it might be fun to play this if a certain game master might be willing to run something like this for our first Theleston playthrough. Do we want to, what do you want to think about possibly running this? And should we each actually make a character for this setting? Or what do people think? The bigger question is, should we each now make a character ourselves for the next episode based on this setting? Since we have enough.
I kind of thought we were gonna jointly decide what Harold was gonna do.
Yeah, a little bit.
You want to try that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably go slower because all four of us have to agree. But it's like
we can try that. But I still wouldn't mind playing. Doesn't have to be for the next episode. I'm just saying I kind of like this setting for something that.
Yeah, actually, I actually wouldn't be opposed. We might be able to slate maybe the last 10-15 minutes of the next few episodes. Let everyone do a character for that and just see how they'd approach it with their own character. Just for funsies.
Yeah.
Which means we can expect great things from Pole.
We're moving into March.
Yeah. Oh, so if you folks didn't hear from the last fireside, and then I think they confirmed it again last night on the joint night show, there is either today or tomorrow the sending of the invitations will occur. The 4 golden tickets will be going out to the folks. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see who's in, who's joining up, who's going to be in the first session here. Should be interesting. Yeah. Though I would imagine being a Patreon probably helps your chances. So or a patron rather. And by the way, folks, there was a issue with Cloudflare with their DNS stuff. So your Patreon password, and probably a bunch of other passwords you might want to change. Just a heads up for everybody here. So yeah, so let's just kind of think about it a little bit. Like, so being approached even about being deputized for Harold, he's a businessman at heart.
Well, I'm trying to wonder first, even where we're at in terms of winter and what our personal supplies are, and how are we just feeling in general before even getting to somebody approaching us? Like, is the business running okay? Are we concerned about our resources? Are people still coming? What are our clients? How's the clientele at this point?
I would imagine at this point he and everyone else is having a hard time getting the resources. I would imagine prices may have started to increase as the scarcity has started to set in. So that would mean the cost of goods themselves would start to increase. And, I'm not really sure exactly how Harold would resolve this if he tries to add more yeast and stuff to make them poofier so they look bigger but they're the same amount of material, or likewise just making them smaller and selling them for the same price that the larger ones would normally go for because he has to compensate for the cost.
How are the farms in Southgate faring?
Right, that would be the question. How are the farms faring? The three different kinds of farms. How are they doing?
Well, it's winter
I
as
mean,
it is, so they're not going to be doing much of anything.
Right, but where are the stores? Where's the storage? Yeah. How is it? Here we are 2 weeks or 3 weeks from the end of old winter and the beginning of spring. I'm guessing that transition is gradual. So we got to have food stored even though they're getting down to the nubs, right?
Yeah.
And then shit happens. So, like a good cook will know how to stretch things out.
Mm-hmm.
Those old stories about boiling shoe leather. I mean, there's going to be ways to stretch things out, whether you're boiling bones for broth or, something.
Chewing on a piece of brisket for 3 days.
The sick people are kind of contaminated, so you don't want to use that to help stretch your stores out. The dead people, use them anymore. They're not.
Well, and you might be killing off your horse in order to get food or bones. There's just that kind of thing happening where once you start running low and you can't get back and forth to the docks, if the docks are quarantined, then, it's going to get right down to the nubs. And I imagine all the vegetables and the fruits are gone, almost gone. People might be hoarding food.
Yeah, we're talking a time period where crop yields, if you could even harvest, more than 50%, you were doing well.
Right.
So they'd hold on to a lot of that for winter. They're going to be, Crown's Rock especially, would be probably fairly dependent on imports, which is why the docks would be so important. It's going to be lean times. I mean, I'm sure everyone kind of feels the pinch. Everyone but the Dick Millionaires feel the pinch towards the end of winter. But at the same time, I'm starting to remember the geography here, but there are probably areas that have rolled into warmer weather sooner, so they may already be starting up production, and you may see that kind of gap in foodstuffs kind of be alleviated faster than we might think. But it's either way. I mean, this is even now, people riot over bread and flour prices. I mean, even in our modern conveniences. So any hint that there may be a food shortage, that there could be a quarantine to incoming goods, would be huge. I mean, just and simple.
Well, so not only that, but doubling on the fact that if that quarantine means the gates are sealed and what's stored in the farms might be harder to get in, that's going to make it even worse, because there are still probably a lot of resources that are stored out on the farms, especially I would imagine large volumes of any grains or anything that, even if they don't grow a lot of grains there, it would still make sense to get it from the docks to somewhere that's going to stay pretty dry and pretty safe most of the time. So
right. There might be hay in the barns, But then you'd have to decide, am I going to sacrifice my hay, which means sacrificing my animals, which means sacrificing my dairy, perhaps?
And the children,
Yeah.
delicious, delicious children.
Well, we used to use those. We used to have those available, but they're getting sick, so scarcity. So
Yeah,
I'm wondering
agencies are
now.
crabbing in bad weather. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm
Crabbing
wondering
in bad
now,
weather, yes.
Which we should have an idea of which of the farms are the best off at the moment, not only crop wise, but also which it's not which. Well, we should know. So which docks are closest to being quarantined and shut down? It's probably not both of them at the same time.
Although it's mentioned that Hohen's port is kind of shadier of the two ports, so maybe that's where the first one to suffer that.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Okay. That's on the north side.
And it may not even be justified. It may actually be that there's nothing wrong. It's the other docks, right? That's the beauty of storytelling. But it could just be because that's the dock that they just naturally assume. Well, if there's problems, it's going to be those guys.
Right, but there's a dozen farms out there, plus the estate that's sitting outside the gate. So if they quarantine the north gate, then that's all that, whatever was happening there, all that traffic, all those farms, the storage, everything is now cut off.
I'm thinking the Southgate farm has another advantage the other farms don't really have, and that's that it has a vast amount of woodland to the
Yes.
to the east of it. So I'd imagine Southgate Farms also has a lot of people that go foraging, a lot of people that go hunting. They might be down to the point where it's like, yeah, there's going to be some sort of bear in a cave that's going to be real pissed that we're waking it up, but this is the only chance we're going to have to eat for the next few days, so we've got to kill it, and if someone dies, someone dies. I would imagine it's getting down to that point of desperation that you're willing to take on something.
Trappers and hunters, things like that. Desperation drives a lot of things. Street, animals, dogs, cats, things like that would all be getting plucked off the street too. Just reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool.
So if it started at the north gate, does it move around and affect the west gate, or did it come around on the east side? I mean, how does that work in the storyline?
That's a good point.
Well,
Westgate itself could actually be fairly isolated. Westgate Farms.
It is.
So
Also near the crypt.
yeah, there's no docks
And the
nearby. Unless
I
there's
was
some screwy business going on in the crypts that's also spilling over there, then no, they'd probably be the most insulated part of it.
I suppose it depends on what the cause is, but I was thinking that it was kind of concentrated at the dock, since that's where the disappearances are happening. So I think it probably has not spread around to whatever would be at the east and west yet. It seems like it's starting at the docks and then beginning
But
to.
then, did a ship coming from somewhere else bringing contagion arrive at both the north and the south?
We don't know. We don't know if it's a ship.
So, in fact, I don't necessarily want to know
That's the
too much because that's
right,
the
and that's
show
what I'm
going
saying.
into
So
this.
All right.
What we had established so far is that people were disappearing at the docks.
So I have a question about that, a logic
Mhm.
question. How do we
ahead.
know that people were disappearing at the docks if there's no lighting?
Again, we don't know. These were just what children observed when they,
that's a rumor.
went out
Okay.
from.
Absolutely valid point, but
Yeah.
it is the rumors.
That's the most we've heard from anybody that's said anything. It could have been completely made up by a kid that just wants attention, or them and their group of friends they convinced, or that could be something that's absolutely going on. It's
So
don't
random
know.
deputization sounds a little
Well, but it sounds like so.
overboard for rumor.
What we heard is nobody lighting the docks. So that seems to either be a case of people being too sick to light the docks, or people being too scared to light the docks because of the disappearances. So you have to get somebody who's willing to brave the sickness and brave the disappearances, who are going to go through and keep an eye on what's going
why
on
not
down
pick
there.
the
Which is us.
expendable baker?
Well, again, he
So
was
somebody's
he
gotta
was
make it
partially
zero?
he's
Wow.
he's partially
Southern bakers.
the person they wanted to go with because, he's known for somebody who never really gets sick, never really, has any ill effects from anything. He's a pretty healthy dude most of the
Right,
time.
we created our iron stomach guy.
Exactly, and that's between that and the fact that he's a local. He knows the area. He knows the town. He's been there his entire life. People know who he is. I wouldn't say that necessarily people come from far and wide. Nobody's going to be marching down from the Rose to the other end of Crown's Rock just to get his buns, unless it's for some very special event. At which point, I'm sure he would have some sort of commission and courier thing set up or whatever, and they would be a contract deal, but whatever. So people know him. He knows people. He's likable enough and well established enough, and most notably, he was the guy that maybe there was some baking competition or something, and everybody sampled everybody's things and gave like a blind review or whatever, and he's the only one that wasn't puking their guts out the next day. It's like, oh man, that stuff was great. What's wrong with you guys? So, that could have been the thing that's like, oh my god, you do have an iron stomach. This man's invincible. So, something in the past gave him the notoriety by which he's known for this. Maybe one of the other sheriffs or something, the sheriff that wanted to become a baker, like if they could have traded places, they would have, sort of thing or whatever. That they were competing or whatever. It's like specifically recognized. Maybe that's another thing. Maybe someone wants him dead. Someone wants him out of the picture. They want him incapacitated. So they're trying to push for authorities to deputize him specifically, and giving his strong health as the case for why he should do it.
And seems to be more of a stomach type virus than a cold or
Right.
Yeah, I mean it's something that
pustule
obviously
popping
makes,
out all over the skin. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's something that obviously makes them think that it's a food source or similar, some kind of ingested, or at the very least they suspect it is. And yeah, I mean they might not even if we don't want to make it too far-fetched, they may not even be deputized. They might just be asking them to help out, consult, whatever.
Is food stored at the docks? Are there granaries like at the docks?
No, there shouldn't be, because it's a
Graining
kind
laundry?
of wet area. I would imagine, though, there might be some stuff on some of the ships that haven't even been unloaded yet. So, there might still be some supplies out there that if people are willing to brave it and can actually make it out there, maybe they could
Well, I was
bring
kind of
back.
looking at bad grain sitting on the docks.
Yeah, there's probably a bit of
source of
that, but I
problem.
would imagine it's on ships.
Okay.
Those are actually, that's not a bad question, but those are actually the kind of questions that you would ask and discover as your character progresses through this. That's a
Yeah.
logical question. So, but
Yeah.
then you start running into the storytelling aspect of that. Is like, well, is that true? That's a good hypothesis. Now your character goes out to see if it's true, and that may be very well where Harold starts. Is well, I mean, come on, guys, you leave grain out in the damp. Of course, it's going to go bad.
So it seems like we're fairly close to being able to start off. What are we missing in terms of what we need to start actually running the campaign?
Obligatory adventurer's kit with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
equipment is still one of the things. Equipment, and I think the when it comes to combat, I think the character stance stuff is still mostly settled, but still being worked out a little bit. So if he doesn't get in a fight, or if it can be resolved fully narrative based without even needing to resolve it with stance sheets, and you're able to just kind of guess what his equipment and the value and everything would be, and about how much money he would have left after that, then that you could get pretty close. You could just ballpark it. Unless this is something that's going on at like a major convention or something where you need to have everything all fully official. That's not the case with this, at least at this point. So, if everybody had the time and the availability, they could start a campaign based on this, like right now, even just like off the cuff.
Yeah, because I don't think we don't need normally we'd be, I mean, for me, with a D&D game, and if I'm thinking about equipment, then I'm trying to figure out, my armor. It's not really going to have armor, and I'd be trying to figure out the plus stats that I could have on my weapons, and we're not really going to have that.
Harold is not a min-maxer. He's going to have an apron.
Well, you're not going to, you're not going to, so the things that we would have is winter clothing. I don't think we really have to quibble over that. He likely has winter clothing, and he has enough equipment to bake successfully, and has enough, probably has a dagger or a knife or whatever he's going to go at. He doesn't have, like, super special weapons that he's going out to investigate with.
Yeah, no, exactly.
He does have 2 daggers as skill.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. So
which was kind of improvised because he was a chef, right, or a cook, so he has the short knives. Yeah, but I agree. He's going to have a pretty basic kit, right? It's just common items, and that's why improvised weapons are important, and that's why for skills. That's why, I mean, at most, maybe the most technically stout thing that he has might be like a heavy leather apron or
and so
pair of gloves.
I think for me, what I was really wondering is resources. Again, if it's winter, does he have enough food supplies to keep the business going, to bake? And if not, where is he going to go to try and get more? And it sounds like that's going to be south instead of north from what we talked about today. So
although that does actually tickle on to great motivation as to why he'd do any of this to begin with. It directly affects his ability to make his livelihood, right? So
so
it seems like, go ahead.
Oh, we got a little bit from Snipe here. There's a customs house in the South Docks. There's also a few granaries in town, one at the Abbey, one at the Cathedral, one in each of the farm districts, and a few private stores scattered around as well.
Okay, so that's not out of the realm of possibility at all.
No, absolutely. So, yeah, we don't know. Maybe there is grain in those private grain silos.
Oh, that could unlock a whole other thing of story.
Yeah. So,
cool.
Yeah, it sounds like we could start if we wanted to start next week. If that's what we want to do, is try and run Harold through the scenario.
Yeah, a basic scenario. I don't think we want to get bogged down too heavily by it, but I think it'd be fun just to explore some of the thoughts, explore what we think how his skills that we've created would be used in this. Yeah. And I would also, again, I agree with Diggs. I think it might be fun to spin off our own characters, how we would build a character to approach the same situation, just for fun. Again, I mean,
Gotcha. One of the estates is sort of preppery. They're preppers. They're preparing for bad times. Okay. They've got that stainless steel bunker that houses 50 people, and they've got all the assault rifles and everything down. Oh wait, wrong sort of preppers. Same idea though. I'm sure they've got a collection of weapons along with their foodstuffs and maybe some magic stuff. They have no idea what it does down there. So I don't know. It's magical. Just stash it for the future. We might need it to blow up the Alder Crown. Yeah, no, I don't. I would hope they're not thinking that would be the thing to get them out of bad times. If that's what was causing them, that would cause even more catastrophic events, I would imagine. But
it certainly isn't going to help them.
Yeah. Not going to get gods on their side doing that one. Well, maybe some of them. Not the ones you want.
Do we want to think about religion?
Probably
Who they work up? Are they Dema?
Well, we're in Crown's Rock, right? And Harold is in Crown's Rock. So
very likely
we're talking about Brog and Enemy.
But also Nodens and
Nodens. Those are the three. That's the Crown's Rock.
Those are the three that are there, but
yes.
But you're right. He could technically worship to anything.
Dema
Dema, maybe even Cirith, or whatever.
I could see Nodens. He liked the idea of, if there was more room for metal workers or stuff, maybe that's what he would have done with life. But instead, he gets to forge and shape dough with heat and brawn. So, you know, he's still crafting in the spirit of somebody who'd be crafting as a follower of Nodens. It's just instead of working with metal on an anvil, he's working with dough on a cutting board.
But I could see Brog if they're recipe oriented and
That's true.
um,
Yeah, I don't
Scholarly.
know how
He's very.
scholarly he is.
He could be kind of
well,
scholarly. I
it's the
mean,
god of knowledge, so that's not necessarily that doesn't necessarily have to be academic knowledge.
that's true.
No, but
Yeah,
but
you
the
can just
Brogding
appreciate.
are pretty much oriented around scholastic activity.
Right, but I didn't say. But he's not trying to be a monk. I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
you can just
he would-
appreciate that that
Yeah.
knowledge is there, the knowledge of bread and fermentation. I pray to beer, and then the next day I might pray to the toilet. It's have a natural order, which means yeast, and therefore I pray to our old ancestors who accidentally left bread and water, or flour and water out once. Not I don't actually pray to any of this, but just as an example.
But yeah, I'm wondering what approach they might take. So what was the other? So I don't think there's much. I can't think of a way that they would be really worshiping anime.
Well, except that food is a vital, life-giving thing. It's a requirement for life. So
Yeah,
as
but I don't-
as a producer and purveyor of food, he's kind of automatically an animeist.
I don't necessarily.
Well, but I'm wondering about focused worship, like who would he be praying?
Who is the? There is a god or goddess. I can't remember who is associated with that they associate with the harvest. Essentially, who that would seem to be the likely one.
Right.
Yeah, possibly.
That
What was?
probably Dema.
Yeah.
No,
Demis-
that's Sirith. I got
I was thinking it was Sirith, but I could be wrong. But again, Diggs is actually right. It doesn't have to. You don't have to worship a thing that is directly related to you. It's
Yeah.
likely.
Ah.
Is it convenient? Certainly, but I mean, he could very well just be a
You know?
hardcore Trinity of the Sea guy who just happens to make a damn good muffin.
I was wondering about that, Snipe. He was saying holiday. It's why he's baking instead of making more common foods. That would make sense.
Yeah, there we go.
That's actually kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like it.
That's
Cool.
pretty fascinating, I think. Okay, yeah, let's look
Yeah.
into that and see how that might apply to both the investigation and the baking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, we are at wrap up time here, so we will be wrapping it up. So thanks everybody for coming. All of you wonderful folks in chat there, devs and fellow Thelestonans. Don't get that mixed up. Yeah, I know we had it messed up last time. We got it corrected. And yeah, folks, keep on the lookout. I believe Sunday next week at this time over on the, I'm guessing it's going to be on the Dope Crew channel, is where we'll be seeing the first playthrough, or the first gameplay session. Though I would imagine, like we've talked about, it's likely going to be a lot of character creation if they don't decide to create the characters kind of loosely in a vacuum, so players don't know the backstories of the other characters as much, because that's kind of a fun element too, and I'm going to talk about that just real quick before we wrap up. That's kind of two mentalities. If you all create your characters at the same time, it's kind of a fun sort of thing, because you can all base everything on each other, have a really solid and well min-maxed group, or be able to fill in all the gaps and everything, and that's cool. But it's equally fun to create your characters not knowing who's what else and what's going on with them, so that way you have to meet the person. And in D&D, it's like you meet somebody that's wearing chainmail, that's got a flail on their hip, they've got a shield, they've got some sort of holy symbol. You might expect they might be a cleric, maybe they're a fighter. maybe they're, dressed like that to make you make that you think like that, or they're a rogue and that's what they just stole off of someone. You can't just be like, oh, you're a level 5 cleric. Hey, join the party. It's like, hey,
Right.
I've never seen you before. Tell me your name, or start getting in the conversation or whatever. You don't just go, oh, hi, here's my stats and level. What's your stats and level? That's totally noob gauche for like D&D campaigns and stuff. So I like the idea of being able to approach it either way, and I'm really interested to see how they decide to do it here.
Yeah, I was hoping that we could get some setting behind the scenes. So, and I was kind of hoping, yeah, we would do character creation,
Yeah.
or at least a bit of it before we actually start the first play session. I don't know how well that's gonna. That's all however many people are gonna be trying to do that at once during the first videotaped session. It can take forever. But yeah, so great. So hopefully we'll have a little bit of a start on that
And
next week.
I would imagine if you tune in on Tuesday and catch the fireside, you'll probably learn a little bit more about it between now and when they actually do the show. So definitely, if you're interested, tune into that. I'm sure they'll have a lot of stuff to talk about. Or maybe they won't. Maybe they'll be like, nah, we're keeping it under wraps. You won't learn about it till you learn about it. If you got the golden ticket, you'll know a little bit. We'll see. We'll see what they do. Should be interesting. And till then, see you folks next week in the chat room during the show. And then a week after that, we will be back to most likely talk about what we saw in the first episode there. And then probably get back to Harold Baker here.
Sounds good.
All right.
Cool.
Sounds good.
All right. Till then,
See you,
see
everybody.
you later.
Thanks for coming out.
See you later.